Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/206, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or call the voicemail hotline at 202-930-1109 and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of May here on the Pedalshift Project. And it's kind of exciting because I just want to break right into this. Breaking news. I totally stole that from one of the Pod Save America guys. Anyways, I've got great news. The C and O Campgrounds on the northern and western end of the trail are officially open. I was getting one of those funny feelings. My spidey sense was tingling the last few days. I just thought that there was a real strong possibility that there was going to be a phased reopening of the C&O, and it would probably start with the campgrounds in some way, shape, or form. And turns out I was right. I want to read directly from the C&O conditions page, which frankly I was mashing refresh on for the last couple of days because of said spidey sense. But in any event, here we go. Biker campsites are open in Frederick, Washington, and Allegany Counties. By the way, those are all in Maryland because that is where most of the trail is. Now, it translates to Calico Rocks, which is mile marker 47.6, to Evitts Creek, which is the last one right before Cumberland. I want to say that's like mile marker 180. Reading on. Please bring your own water as pump handles will not be replaced and turned on at this time. Restrooms may be open and will be cleaned twice weekly, which is amazing because that's more than I clean my own bathrooms. That was probably an overshare. Please bring your own hand sanitizer, soap, and toilet paper as these items have been the subject of theft. Amazing news. I plan to do a tour, probably goes without saying, in the next few weeks. I've been thinking about this a fair amount lately, which probably shouldn't surprise you. I'm probably going to do a loop that starts and ends here at my cabin in West Virginia, and goes to the western end of the trail rather than go back towards DC. I think that this is great news, really, for anybody who wants to do the C&O. The Calico Rocks campsite is actually pretty nice, and there's only a few options that are on the DC side closer than Calico Rocks. Frankly, if you're going to do the trail in 3 days, nothing really changes for you. I mean, you are committed basically from a campsite perspective once you're past Calico Rocks in either of the directions. But I think it actually works out really, really well. Now, for me, my mindset has always been I wanted to be on this side of the towpath just because I think that this area is more wildernessy. I think that there's more of a chance of having at least a little bit of the trail to myself for some kind of period of time. So I'm super excited about it. I don't know precisely when I'm going to be doing it. It's going to be in the first few weeks of June, may or may not be on a weekend. I'll have to figure all of those details out. Of course, you'll be amongst the first to know. This will be released, of course, as always, as another tour journal. So it may seem like it's all tour journals all the time on the pod. And yeah, we'll have another one coming up soon. But we got to finish up this one first. So this week we've got the thrilling and frankly hysterical conclusion to the 2015 Erie Canal adventure. Trust me on that one. Next week, we're going to do the best of, which on schedule as normally. Usually that's the first pod of the month. That's going to be the wrap-up episode for the 2015 Erie Canal ride. So you get that kind of bit of closure, tie a ribbon around it, etc., etc. But let me tell you, we've got some amazing stuff coming in June. I've got some interviews in the books. I've got, of course, the new tour journal that'll be coming. There's going to be some really fun things that are going to be happening. So if you're holed up, if you're not able to get out on a bike tour, I'm hoping that some of this will sate your appetite a little bit. I do know that in some places there are ways to do some responsible touring. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. If you are going out on a tour and you're doing it in a good, responsible way, I'd love to hear more about it. Shoot me an email at pedalshift@pedalshift.net. But without further ado, let's revisit 2015. It's Pedalshift Tour Journal of the Erie Canal. Welcome to day 4. And day 4 I'm going to call the moist day. I am getting out right before the rain starts. And I don't anticipate I'll have very much dry riding today. Heading down the big hill that I complained about yesterday. And
it was, it's a pretty moderate-sized hill, which is why you're going to start hearing wind in a second, probably. So I'll slow it down. Darn it. See what I do for you people? I could bomb down this hill, but instead, for audio quality, I'm going to ride the brakes. That's commitment. It is pretty. I just took a picture and put it up on Instagram and the other social media areas at Pedalshift for all that. And it's going to be rainy, and it's going to be cloudy, and it's going to be cool. So very marked contrast to yesterday. Sorry about that gust. But I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be about a 50-mile ride today. I secured a car rental on the Albany side last night because I found a good deal. So that's all set. And now I'm going through a construction area because, of course. So hold on here while I navigate this safely. All right. There we go. They're doing a lot of construction here, perhaps for facilities. Very nice state park. Warning to the wise, if you do end up doing the Erie Canal route, you do have to go up a little bit of a hill. It's not the end of the world. New York State parks are a little on the pricey side. Unlike the West Coast, there are no specific hiker-biker rates. I chose to spend an extra $6 for electric that I probably didn't need. But I'm all charged up. And that was a little, RV park prices. Oh, for crying out loud. I'm going to go around this guy who wants to stop in the middle of everything. Sorry for the extra noise there, but that's the bike tour, right? So I'm going to be going 50 miles today, not far from, I believe, Utica. I am hoping that the lock house that is on the west side of Utica is one of the ones that will allow for camping. I am going to call them ahead just to be on the safe side, but I'll also probably take a pit stop somewhere in a town with a reasonable place to eat that I can sit down and not horrify people, because I'll be a drowned wet cat most likely at that point. So I can kind of find out what my alternatives are. I would strongly prefer to be in a place that is not a wild camping scenario, and maybe I'll wild camp the last night before going into Albany on that last day, but we'll just have to kind of see how it all goes. The wild camping opportunities, I do want to mention, I had thought that it was going to be really, really good. Now, on the towpath itself, the towpath is very overgrown from basically the edge of the towpath on both sides. There are very few spots. Every once in a while, you'll find a spot that is probably a turnaround for maintenance vehicles and stuff like that. But, that may not necessarily be the best thing. I'm crossing, by the way, a major road here to get back to the trail. So I have to say, wild camping is possible. It is not ideal. And strangely enough, I probably could have wild camped last night and been just fine, but it was nice to have a shower, and it was nice to have some other amenities as well up at the top of that big-ass hill. So, all right, well, I'm going to be putting the phone in a more secure, more waterproof spot. I believe that the rain is going to be starting any second now. Dark Sky gave me a 20-minute heads up, which was very cool. I had peaked right when I woke up and knew that I had 55 minutes, and that's just about now. So, from the Erie Canal towpath in Fayetteville or Manlius, one of the two towns here in central New York, I'll probably be wet. Got a small break in the rain, so I thought I'd risk bringing out the phone. It, as advertised, is a moist ride. The sound you hear in the background is this really cool feature. It's an intact, I think they call these viaducts, but what it is the old canal was built over an existing creek. And it's a pretty impressive piece of technology, even for the 1800s. And it works really well. Boats would literally float over the creek on this setup. So I took a picture, and it's in all the social media networks, so check that out. Looks like there's going to be a light rain for the next 40 minutes. It's going to increase again. I'm fairly soaked, but, once you get wet, I kind of like it because it keeps me nice and cool. The only downside will be if I do want to stop and try to get some food in civilization, I'll be the wet rat coming in, so hopefully I don't look too dastardly or out of place or whatever, but I'll just put on a big smile and hope that works. So that's it here from, I think, Chittenango, New York. Chittenango. There's another one of your great Iroquois names. You'll be hearing a lot of them over the next few days. Again, this is the great tribe of upstate New York. The Iroquois Articles of Confederacy were the blueprint for the U.S. Constitution, so we have a lot to thank them for that, amongst other things. Pedalshift Tour Journals Volume 3 from lovely Canastota, New York. And I am mowing down on 2 cinnamon donuts and some coffee, because damn it, I deserve it. It's wet. Rain stopped. It looks like it'll be, it's actually brightening up a little bit. Dark Sky says it's going to be raining later today, though. So I'm going to probably enjoy this for a little bit and then keep on riding. Looking good for the 50 today. I mean, I feel real strong, and hopefully I'll be able to find some other towns to do a bigger, more substantial lunch. It's still a little bit early in the morning. It's just a little bit after 9 right now, so not a lot of stuff is open here. So that is that. We'll be checking in later. Beautiful ride. I wish I could have taken a lot of pictures so far, but just raining too hard to risk the phone. Now that it's a little bit drier, hopefully I'll get some more for you. From outside Rome, New York, Lock 21 to be specific, I'm back on the quote-unquote modern Erie Canal, which is kind of nice. The lock that I just crossed, I put a picture of, so you got a real good look at a modern lock after showing you pictures of old and busted, non-used ones on the old canal. They're really impressive structures. I mean, they're basically gigantic doors, and there's a space, the lock itself, where a boat can change level as water is brought in or drained to take you to the new level. Most of the locks I've been noticing raise or lower the boats somewhere between like 10 and 15 feet. That's a fair amount of water, but it's just really interesting that this system has, although it's modernized in terms of the types of structures, the basic idea of creating a compartment where water is pumped in or pumped out it's largely remained the same, so that's kind of cool. So I'm hoping, since I'm on the modern canal now, that I might see some boats between here and Utica. That would be kind of cool. I'm not on a towpath, or I guess you'd still call this a towpath. I'm not next to the canal for the entire way. There will be more road work. It's another section of the Canal Trail where it's sort of on and off and on and off for the next several miles. I'm about halfway done with my day, and I'm trying to figure out what the best bet's going to be for tonight's accommodations. Utica's tricky. Utica's the logical place to stop, but Utica's a small city. Camping opportunities are not really super prevalent, so I may end up having to take a hotel if the timing of it works out. The other thing that's conspiring against me is the rain. I had a really nice stretch of cloudy but dry weather, so I've dried out quite a bit. But about the time I get to Utica, it's going to rain, and it's going to rain for the rest of the day. So I could, if I'm lucky, end up at, there's a lock outside of Utica on the west side, so on the side that I'm on. If they do allow camping there, that might be a good option. Downside, of course, is that there's very rarely any services or anything like that. I've got zero food on me. Oh, I have a half a bag of chips. Yeah, that'd be a great dinner, right? So I'll have to kind of play this by ear. I do prefer to do camping, but since it's going to rain all through the afternoon and all night long, the opt out to a hotel maybe the possibility that I go for. I'll obviously keep you all updated on that. You know, the upside to that is that gives me a chance to dry out. I can actually have the bike be secure, and then I can explore lovely Utica, New York, which I actually have very little experience with. Although I am from Western New York and went to school in Syracuse, from about this point east is sort of a blind spot for me in the state. That was another reason why I'm kind of excited about biking. You get to learn a little bit more about it and see the sights and all of that. So, good opportunity to learn more. Try and get some more pictures as I go along here. Again, if the rain does come, like it's supposed to, that might limit my opportunities. Really kind of beautiful day. I have to say, I think I mentioned it before, I would rather be a little bit wet and take a little bit of rain than have the 86 and sun that I did yesterday. 86, and boy, it was hotter than that actually. I think it was flirting with 90 during parts of it. So this is kind of nice. The other thing that I like about it, it's really quiet. There's almost nobody here on the trail. And I think that's another thing that I would mention to anybody who's considering a tour in this part of the world. This is a really underutilized resource. There's some really good positives to it. You can cover a lot of ground. It's a great route through New York State while exploring some historical stuff. I'm a real fan of this, and I'll talk more about this, of course, in the wrap-up show in a couple of weeks on Pedalshift Project. From Rome, New York. This time I'm actually in Rome, New York. Before I was on the outskirts. Beautiful setup they have here for the most part for the canal routing. I think I got off of it. The first part, I was on a very busy, unlaned road, and I was following Google Maps rather than looking for markings as much. So I'm not sure if that portion was, pardon my drop there, on the actual trail route. That was suboptimal. But the rest of it, once I got back on, really well signed. That you can tell this is a town that really takes it very seriously. And Rome's a large town, I would call it. Utica, where I'm heading to next, would be best characterized as a small city. But both seem to be taking their role in the history of the Erie Canal quite seriously. They were, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the first section of it was really in this area. So rain is held off. I may be beating the rain to Utica, or the rain may be greeting me in Utica, one of the two. I've got about an hour's worth of riding to go. Stopped very briefly for a quick lunch. And I picked up a little something, because there's an outside chance I may try to camp someplace, like a wild camping scenario. I keep going back and forth on this. I've gone from wild camping to campground to hotel and now back. I think I just want simple, and I want kind of low key. Now, I don't have a ton of water with me. I just bought another thing of it, but I realized I probably would have liked a little bit more if this was going to be it, but I can make do if necessary. But we'll see. It's about 12 miles into the city of Utica, and the hotel options that abound there. I think it's much closer, and the full 50 is actually before Utica, if I intend to stop at that lock. Now, I haven't had a chance to call to see if that's a campable spot, but thought maybe what I would start doing is weather dependent, and whether I get there before the rain or whatever, I may just kind of roll up and see what the situation is before I make any decisions. So, beautiful section right here. Another green tunnel. A lot of good green tunnels today. Of course, green tunnels are the overgrowth so that it arches over the entire trail. It's been really pretty. And this is a great section of the ride. And you know what? I have to say, just having the clouds and a little bit cooler temperatures really has made this a lot easier of a day for me. It's funny because yesterday was a lower mileage day slightly. Well, only by a couple of miles, I suppose, but there was a lot more elevation pitch change, a lot more asphalt reflecting quite a bit of heat on me. So this has been a much more enjoyable ride for me. From Utica, New York, I am just inside the city limits. I decided to go for the hotel as the rain was approaching, and it felt like the right choice. Now, I am not in any 5-star accommodation by any stretch of the imagination. I am in the Scottish Inn. It is about as good as one would expect. I believe there is a faux painting of some kind of half-domish kind of thing on the wall. It is a sight to behold. I may have to take a picture just to share. This is all about just sort of
convenience in terms of tomorrow morning, because I was able to push a few extra miles so I can maybe just kind of take a little bit more of a rest, get a slightly better night's sleep, and look for a more fun camping opportunity tomorrow. I had the energy to keep pushing, and I think on a different set of circumstances, I would have done so, would have pushed on and found a campground on the other side of the city. But just sort of where I was with what the weather was doing, all of that, I just decided to make the call and do the hotel today, because it does look like it's kind of just a long soaking rain. I spoke with my girlfriend who's west of here in Batavia, and it's been raining all day. So I just feel like I kind of lucked out. I got very little rain on me. Had a really good strong riding day, and really when all was said and done, it could have gone south real quick if I just had a real soaker to end the day. There's sort of nothing worse than setting up a tent in the rain and then getting into it. That's just me. Lots of people feel differently, but I think it was worth making the call on this. So not the way I would have liked to have done a night on this tour, but I kind of take things as they come. I don't consider this a fail. There's lots of people that do hotels and B&Bs every night, so just sort of I take it as it comes. And that's the other interesting about this tour. The thing about this tour is the fact that I've done so little planning that, from maybe a half hour ago, I had no idea where I was going to end up staying, and I just sort of made the decision on a whim, knowing sort of what my panoply of possibilities were. It did not look like that it was possible to camp at the lock. It did say that the area closed after dusk. So that was the one thing that was taken away. And it was kind of a shame because it was a really beautiful one. That was lock 20, just on the other side of Utica. That would have been kind of nice, but didn't look like that was going to be available. And there wasn't a lockmaster that I could find to inquire. So unfortunately, I had to pass that by. In the end, it's probably for the best because, again, wet tent. All right, so tomorrow, I don't know. I have shorter days, really, because I'm much closer to Albany than I had anticipated being at this point. So I'm going to kind of play it by ear and see how tomorrow goes. I am going to do a little more planning and see if I can find a really good camping opportunity between here and Albany for Wednesday night, which will be my final night camping on this trip. Because Thursday afternoon, I'm going to be rolling into Albany and then grabbing the car and then reversing course and going all the way back to Rochester. So that's it's kind of sad. These tours, after doing some bigger tours last year, or the big tour last year, these week-long tours, while they're really fun and I'm definitely covering some ground and seeing some cool stuff, when I'm just starting to get my momentum going, this trip's over. So I think I'll take it though, because I've had two really good ones.
It's really interesting hearing my point of view regarding the length of tours back then. I was sort of bemoaning week-long tours, and now I'd sort of kill for a week-long tour. It's amazing how, different lifestyle changes and different things that happen, how it can kind of ebb and flow in your life and what's available from a bike touring perspective. I'm looking forward to a week-long tour again. Last year I did a longer one, that 2-week one, and it's awesome. It's great to do longer ones, but now I'm sort of living within what life allows me. And of course, what life allows me now is even less. So I'm killing for a 3-day tour. Coming soon.
From Utica, New York. And it's really more Mohawk River right now. And the Mohawk Valley, the heart of it. And the beauty of this is got a really nice river that I'm going along. And a couple of options. You've got the Erie Canal towpath on one side. And then you've got New York State Bicycle Route 5 on the other. And I'm, because the hotel that I was staying at is on the same side as Route 5, the bicycle Route 5, I'm going to be on that for about 10 or 12 miles, just a little bit easier. Crossing the bridge in the urban environment, at least where I was, would have been possible, but just more trouble than it was worth, especially considering there's a good bike route here on this side. Radically different weather today. It is 62 degrees and cloudy. It is very much in my wheelhouse. It is Lake Oregon in the summer. It feels great. I am actually wearing 2 layers on top, which is much more kind of my speed. So today will be a really nice day of biking. There is an outside chance of a little bit of rain, I understand, but Dark Sky doesn't seem to think so. The local TV weather does, but they have to cover so much of central New York and the Mohawk Valley that it doesn't surprise me that they would hedge their bets a little bit and say a little bit of rain is possible, or a few sprinkles, as they say. I'm passing by a whole bunch of strip mall area, which was really helpful last night for feeding me. I crashed out late in the afternoon, and I did not feel good at all. In fact, I think I might have gotten a little bit of food poisoning from a fast food restaurant best represented by a red-headed woman. You know who I'm talking about, possibly. And felt like crap. But then woke up a little bit later and felt much better. It's questionable whether it was a food thing or whether it was just a dehydration thing. But in any event, I'm back at it and feeling much better. The hotel, I probably didn't need it, but given how hard I crashed, probably helped my recovery a lot more. So in the end, that was a good call, I think. And I'm glad I did it. It was not 5-star accommodations, as I mentioned yesterday. So the next bit of riding, little cars here. This is interesting. This is a New York. Here's the bike lane. It was a rather unmarked bicycle route, but I think it's because it was sort of the edge of a city coming out of the city, and now it's a very nicely shouldered area. So the ride today is shorter than I've been doing, partially because I probably did an extra 10 yesterday, give or take. I think yesterday ended up being closer to 60. Today's going to be 38. I'm going to be ending up in beautiful Fort Plain, New York. And the beauty of that is, a little bit shorter day. So I started later. It's right before 11 a.m. Eastern time right now as I record this, which gave me time to work on the bike. And the campground that I'm going to is actually one of the locks. And I'm really happy to finally be able to spend a night at one of the locks. It is listed as one of the ones that specifically allows camping. They always hedge it and say you should always make sure you call the lockmaster. But since this one has all of the amenities, I think it'll be a good one to go to. The one great thing about the shorter mileage day meant that I could really take full advantage of the hotel night. I checked out right, a few minutes ago and was able to do a lot more work on the bike. It's amazing what you sort of put up with over time on a bike tour. And especially over the course of days, you're riding a lot more than you do on your typical commute and whatnot. So my chain needed to be lubed and all sorts of little adjustments, a little bit of air in the tires, things like that. It's amazing how much better things ride. And I think it's one of the things that I need to do a better job of every other day on a tour is to take the time to do these things. The chain in particular, I can't tell you how much better the drivetrain is right now, just by simply having a clean chain and adding a few drops of lubricant onto it. Really, it's the thing that powers the bike. So that would be my pro tip for the day.
Note for people listening to my pro tips from the past and realize that I am terrible at lubing my chain. Yeah, I should follow my own pro tips. Pro tip from me for the pro tip. Anyways, moving on.
From the beautiful Mohawk Valley town of Herkimer, New York. Great tailwinds, nice cool weather, very smooth riding. This New York Bike Route 5, which is also State Route 5 in this section of the state, is a real treat. It has a nice smooth surface. I wish it were cleaner in parts. In Herkimer here, it's quite nice. In some other parts, I've noticed a lot of road debris. And when you see a lot of, dirt and gravel, if you're going at any kind of speed on it and it's going on a curve, you've got to be real careful because that can just slide right under you and you can take a nasty spill. But also that tends to also mean that it's got the bane of my existence, the radial tire wires. Those can get through a lot of different tires. Now, I'm going to tempt the fates by saying I have been riding on this set of Schwalbe Marathon Supremes since last summer's big tour. I have not had a single flat. That was the entire Pacific Coast. That was all of the small rides and commuting rides that I've done in a variety of places on this bike. It also includes the DC to Pittsburgh ride, and now most of upstate New York, which has included quite a bit of different surfaces. So I have to say, they are expensive, but boy, oh boy, are they worth it. And, when I go through an area where there's road debris, it's on asphalt, but on road debris, or there's road debris on it, I don't worry as much. I think about it, but I don't worry as much about the possibility of grabbing a radial tire wire and making a flat. It's a good tire, and it's fairly bulletproof. I also would go back to the technique that was mentioned on a past show, Peter Bryce talking about his bike mechanics sort of double tire hack, which I thought was a pretty brilliant idea, though of course that would be a very heavy tire. If weight is a thing that you're concerned about, not a good idea. But if making a pretty bulletproof tire on the cheap is your way, that was a pretty great idea. But I'll have to say the Schwalbes have been really, really great for me. So if they're in your price range, couldn't recommend them more. All right, I got a couple more miles until I cross back over the Mohawk River and get back on, I believe I get back on the towpath there. I may be on road for a fair amount today, but I do not mind. The winds have been primarily at my back. Now I'm starting to get a little bit of a headwind, but it's all good. It's been a really nice, smooth ride. Fair amount of a downhill grade. Now I'm starting to have a little bit of an uphill, so it's generally quite flat and really nice. So I really like these cloudy, cool days. They're just so much more pleasant for riding for me. Although now, as I say that, the sun's coming out. And I also tempted the bike gods by mocking the fact that I haven't had a flat. So expect that any second now, too.
Yeah, you think I'm joking. Yeah, keep listening. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the bike gods find their revenge. I'm just saying.
It's Pedalshift Tour Journals, Volume 3, Erie Canal, from Little Falls, New York. What a beautiful little town. And a great trail section. Had a really nice conversation with a gentleman, Vietnam War vet, who had more knowledge of this area than you can shake a stick at. And he was telling me all about the springs and the history, and I'll tell you, this was probably my favorite section of the Mohawk Valley so far. Really picturesque, classic central New York kind of town. Really pretty. Hope some of the pictures got to you over on the social media networks of your choice. I am about ready to, I'm leaving a towpath or I'm crossing a road, one of the two. This is like real-time follow-up right here. Oh, no, looks like I'm just crossing a road. I'm crossing New York State Route 169, which is a pretty major road, so I'm giving it a good look both ways, and we're good. All right. Interesting thing about the towpath as I cross over here is during the summer, obviously, it's used mostly for biking and walking. During wintertime, they do not try to clear it, unlike a lot of bike routes down in the DC area where they try to keep it 365 days a year. Up in this part of the world, you're just not that's a losing proposition. So this becomes a cross-country skiing route, and a really nice one. So a lot of the signs that I run into say that the speed limit is 25. That must be for the snowmobiles, not for bikes, because I'm not sure if I can do 25 unless I'm going downhill. And also for cross-country skiing, not the speed limit for that, but it's a really picturesque route for all of that, and a really nice way to get around during the winter. I'm coming up to a sign that says an 8% grade, so speaking of 25 miles per hour, looks like I'm going to be doing it, and thankfully, you might have just heard, I'm on paved section right here. So you want to come down this hill with me? Let's go down this hill. All right. Hopefully this will not include the sound of me crashing and falling. If you remember from last year's Pacific route, I did a big downhill on a rather gravelly part. So pardon the wind as we start to go down this. This is not 8%. This is also not paved. Interesting. I don't know when this 8% grade is starting, but it's nowhere within sight that I can see. So, well, maybe we'll just kind of call it a stop right here. This is a really beautiful part. I'll actually take a picture of this because there's a gorgeous open field here. And what a really picturesque part of the state. This is one of the reasons why I'm really glad that I did this route, because there are parts of New York State, if all you know is New York City, you're missing out, because there's some really beautiful parts of this wonderful place where I was born, the Empire State. From Lock 15 near Fort Plain, New York. I guess it's in Fort Plain, New York. What a beautiful spot. I cannot wait to camp here tonight. Really big grassy area. I'll definitely put pictures up on all the social media. The big lock, of course, is right here. It's an enormous section of the canal. This is as wide as I think I've ever seen the Erie Canal, so that's kind of cool. It is set up and specifically signed for camping, which is fantastic, so I don't have to worry about chatting with any of the lock masters, although they're down over about maybe a couple hundred yards from here. I may actually even go over there anyways, just so I can get some more pictures. Beautiful ride today. Cloudy to start, nice and cool. Then the sun came out, and but it's very much in the 70s. It's not too bad. So really perfect bike riding today. Tomorrow I'll probably get a little bit earlier of a start. I think I've got about 50 miles until the section of Albany that I have to go to. I have to decide exactly whether I'm going to go all the way into downtown Albany or not. May or may not, depending on how quickly I get up, how I'm feeling, all of that. The car rental is actually on the outskirts of the city of Albany, so we'll see where I end up ending the tour. It might be at the car rental place instead of in the beautiful downtown area. I really have enjoyed this trip. This day may have been the best one of all. Really nice picturesque towns, really nice conditions. The trail, when it was the stone dust, reminded me a little bit of the Gap in parts, because it was a little soft, and I noticed that I was riding, I was pedaling into a downhill. I was getting a headwind and in really soft conditions, so it felt like I wasn't really getting as much benefit of going downhill as I normally would like. But that's neither here nor there. Just a really good day for me after a couple of challenging days. And yesterday, of course, I wasn't feeling so hot at the end of the day. But the sights and sounds here are just great. Speaking of sounds, you can probably hear the New York State Thruway I-90 is right over my shoulder here. So I'm sure that noise will be going on through the evening. So as I just emailed Mysterious James, hello, listener and friend of the show, Mysterious James, earplugs for the win tonight. Probably going to go into town, might grab a few things. They've got grills here, which has me thinking maybe I could grill up some dinner, which would mean I'd have to get some charcoal as well. So we'll have to see how into this I decide to get. But it's really nice. They got grills, they got tables, picnic tables, that's what they call them. And there's even one that's really right up close to the water, next to an enormous maple tree, 2 enormous maple trees. Again, take a look. I'll definitely take good pictures of those. Just what a really picturesque spot to be able to spend my last night camping. Pretty great. Final day here in Fort Plain, New York. I'll be cycling from here to Albany in probably maybe another 45 minutes or so. Right now I'm prepping some coffee and enjoying a little breakfast as I'm greeted with one of the most glorious mornings I've ever woken up to. It's a cold morning, and I'll say cold. It's mid-July here in upstate New York, yet the lows last night went down to 49, and I was prepared for it. I usually bring along a summer bag and then a fleece liner, and often regret, that's a train, by the way, you can hear in the background, hello CSX. I often regret bringing the fleece liner, but last night, absolutely not. It was the necessary thing to have with me. I even had to pull up the hood on the summer bag, which I was kind of glad I had. Normally, you don't really need to think about the hoods on a summer weight bag. But it was great. I slept like a champ. wearing my wool sweater this morning, but the sun is out. The mist on the canal is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen on the Erie Canal before. I hope you get a chance to see that on social media. Tents drying out from the dew, and I am in the midst of making an awesome cup of coffee. I brought along the full kit, the full AeroPress kit, and I am dispensing of that right now. Should be a warm day, very sunny. I think getting out early is the way to go. I'm looking forward to that. Just to get a few miles in. It's about 50, it's either 51 or 53. Google Maps seems to not want to make up its mind on one aspect of the route, so we'll have to see what it ends up being. But no matter what, it's going to be pretty much right down the middle of the average of what I've been riding. I think my big day was the other day going into Utica, and that was 60, and yesterday was the most relaxed day at about 38 or so. So yeah, a really nice way to kind of finish off the day. Last night I ran into, Liz and Allison. They rolled through here. They were not stopping here for the night, but I got a chance to visit with them real quick before they went on. They're, if you recall, the two that I met on the first night of camping at that one mosquito-infested campground, and they are working their way to Boston, so they had a warm showers probably in Amsterdam. They said it was about 13 more miles that they had to go, so that should be good. So tailwinds to both of you. And there was another gentleman in camp who was very much a loner, and he was friendly, but definitely a loner, and he set up his tent, and he was in his tent from about 4 o'clock on, and only came out occasionally, but he was gone. I was awake at about 6:30, maybe 6, as the sun really kind of poured into the tent, but I was out of the tent before 7, and he's packed up and long gone, so he is off to his adventures, so good for that. Those were the only 2 bike tourists that I really saw that were at the camps that I was at. I saw another few people passing by in opposite direction, going towards Buffalo last night, probably 4 or 5 people in that group, and that's it. Very lightly covered trail during the summer. And I think that might be because the spring, maybe not the spring, because it's still going to be pretty wet from snow melt, but if you catch the weather right in the spring, it would be a great ride. But the fall is really the time to do this ride in terms of temperatures and climate and things like that. You need to be ready for some cold weather, I'd say, colder weather at night, but nothing that can't be handled. I think that this would be a really glorious ride in the fall with the foliage, because up here it's pretty spectacular. Leaving Fort Plain, New York, just a glorious day. I mean, it's blue sky, sun's out, but still nice and cool. This may be an A+ riding day. Really excited that the day is still ahead of me, but kind of bummed that this is the final day of biking. I'll be driving back to Western New York after this, but the bonus is I get to see my family one more night. Just the timing of this all worked out. It was better to be back in Rochester by tonight rather than adding an extra day of cycling on, just with how everything was all going down. But I'm going to try to pack in as much fun as I can into this last day, because it just started so great. I hope, I think I said this on the prior show that I recorded, mini-sode that I recorded, that the pictures were just not only telling the barest of the story in terms of what everything looked like. It was absolutely spectacular this morning to wake up to the mist on the canal and everything like that. Got a chance to re-listen to the Andrew and Stephanie episode. I mean, I was there, right? So, yeah, I remembered it all, but it was nice to hear that again as well. So I hope you all get a chance to listen to episode 25 of the Pedalshift Project. That's available right now, pedalshift.net/025. Just converted over into the trail. It is kind of old asphalt here. And when I ride on older asphalt, there are times when I wish that it was not asphalt. You may experience this as well. There's often, you'll see the cracks of roots kind of underneath, and it can actually be a kind of an unforgiving surface, which is, I suppose, the price you pay. that when one paves a trail, you sort of get to the point where that trail has old asphalt on it and might not be the best surface to ride on. I added a little extra air to my tires, and so I think I'm feeling it a little bit more too, just sort of transitioning back into that. The cool thing about these wider tires is it gives a little bit of a, I don't want to call it suspension, but a little bit of a buttress from extra bumps in the trails and the roads out there. But I was feeling that it was a little too slow at the end of yesterday. And when I took a look at the air pressure gauge, it was a little lower. It was on the low end of what I prefer to ride on. So I actually pumped it up on the high end of what I prefer to ride on, just because I knew it was going to be a lot of road work today. And now I'm paying for it on the older asphalt. Such is life in buck touring, right? I can always take air out if it's too uncomfortable. Beautiful start to the day. Keep saying it. I'll be back in touch later on as more stuff is going on. I'll also be sure to take pictures of the Canajoharie area, because I want to see what the directionals were like for friend of the show Ethan Georgie and his story. If you heard that on episode 24, I've been dying to see what that looks like ever since he sent that to me. So I'll share that for all of you as well.
Remember that story that a friend of the show, Ethan Georgie, told us in episode 204? Turns out, well, listen up.
Canajoharie, New York. And I have a follow-up to Ethan Georgie's story. Holy hell, sir. This is the most confusing place. I totally see how you could have gotten lost. The pink arrows send you in multiple directions. Up a big hill, I think, is the way that you went. And Google Maps kept insisting, no, wrong way. And so I turned back around because I knew that this was the spot where a friend of the show, Ethan Georgie, had gotten himself lost in some Type 2 fun that added many, many miles to his trip. Well, as it turns out, they really need to cover up some of those pink arrows because they are incorrect and send you the wrong way. The trail, as Ethan said, is literally across the street. And it is very hard to find if you are intent on following those arrows. So come on, Canajoharie, let's get your act together and re-sign that, because that is not the best signed area I've ever seen. Beautiful little town, though. Very nice. And I've been mispronouncing it all my life. I've been saying Canajoharie, but I've heard a few locals say Canajoharie, so I always try to follow what the locals say. All right, so that's it from the Erie Canal towpath, and I am indeed on the Erie Canal towpath here in Canajoharie, New York.
If I were a really enterprising person with an actual bike touring podcast of note, I would have an answer as to whether or not Canajoharie has improved on the pink arrow situation. I do not. My bad.
From Schoharie Crossing, New York, another beautiful stretch of the trail. Trail conditions are a bit up and down. The recent rains definitely made the trail soft. But since the trail is a multi-use trail and includes horses as well, what's happened in the last couple of days, or perhaps a couple of weeks, is that the horse riders obviously are leaving tracks from their horses, because, you know, they're horse riders ride horses, and they leave really, really rutted remnants behind on the stone dust portion of the trail. So that was a little challenging, only for the last couple of miles, but it's a kind of a tooth rattler. I considered taking a little air out of the tires, but, you know, when I was looking at it, I don't think that a little air out of the tires would have made the ride that much better. So I just sort of gritted the teeth and pushed through it. Now Schoharie Crossing is back on a paved section, and of course it's a little rutted here and there. It's not too bad, but I got my wish. I'm definitely not on the horse trail anymore. That may change once I get out of town, so we'll see how that all goes. Let's see, I'm not quite halfway done with the day. It's been a really comfortable ride, very top-notch conditions. Yeah, I mean, the only thing, if it was a little overcast, I would say it'd be perfect, but it's kind of nice to be riding in the sun at a point where that it's not taking a toll on me. So it's kind of in that real perfect space right now, despite the sun exposure. Even all that said, I'm covered up with my sun sleeves and got a cover over the head as well, so just to make sure that everything is avoiding over sun exposure. Probably going to take a break in Amsterdam, which may or may not be around the halfway point. We'll have to see, but that is looking good to me right now for a little bit of a maybe 40-minute break, half-hour, 40-minute break. I think that there is a little bit of hilliness when I get off of the trail going towards Albany, if I'm not mistaken. Nothing crazy, but I think I'll want to make sure that I've got some good fuel in me, and that'll be great. I'm standing right next to a spillway on a bridge that's being reconstructed on the Mohawk River. I'm just outside of Amsterdam, New York. I took a picture and I did a video, but I really want to describe this in detail. It's amazing to be within about 100 feet of seeing a river being held back that's 10 feet higher than the level below it. I mean, that to begin with is really cool to see. It's being controlled, the spillway. You can hear it probably in the background right now. But what else is fascinating is there are construction crews that are another couple hundred yards past where I'm at. And by the way, this is right off of the Erie Canal Trail. And they're working on digging some deeper areas with a backhoe, potentially also working on the footings of this bridge. It's really kind of fascinating to see all of this happening, and the ability of our human capacity to hold back Mother Nature is pretty evident in this spot right here. It's temporary because you know that Mother Nature almost always wins in these situations, but it's kind of amazing what we can do from a technological aspect in terms of holding it back for a little bit. It says a lot about our ingenuity, and it's kind of cool to sit here and watch this. I hope that the pictures and the video can show this, but part of me knows that it can't really do that as well. That's why I wanted to make sure I recorded this to describe it. All right, so I'm probably going to be taking a break in a little bit in Amsterdam, get some food, and enjoy this beautiful afternoon or late morning. Looks like it's barely the end of the morning here. And I got about 2.5 hours of riding left, and should be in at a reasonable hour to end the tour in Albany. Outside of Amsterdam, New York, just had the longest lunch in the history of lunches, and it wasn't by choice. It was just a very slow restaurant. They lost my ticket in the middle of it, and it was just a long break. So taking some doing, I don't know about the rest of you who tour as well, but I don't like taking really long lunches because I settle real quick. Now, I only did about 23 or 24 miles, maybe up to 25, but that's enough. That was a couple solid hours, maybe even a little bit more of riding with minimal breaks. And when I stop, I settle. So it's taken some doing to get back on, but otherwise all good. Still beautiful weather. It's not hot, so it's all good. And I have plenty of time on the Albany side. I have up until 5:30. I should be at least a couple hours early for the car. So, all right, more to come as soon as I get cranked up. I am wrapping things up along the Mohawk River here on this part of the canalway. It's about a mile until I turn off of it and work my way down New York State Bike Route 5, which happens to run right to the spot where my car rental is in Albany, New York. So since that's probably not going to be very good from a sound perspective, like this is much better as I'm right next to the New York State Thruway still, I'll probably be doing a final post when I'm down in Albany rather than trying to do any recordings along State Street, New York State 5 and Central Avenue. The Mohawk's really pretty in this part of the state. And I just put up a final shot of what I imagine is the last lock I'm going to see. It was lock number 8 along the river here. And saw a kayaker on the lee side of it, which was kind of cool to see. But yeah, this has been a great trip. I'll certainly have more to say later when I have some time to digest a little bit. But it's going to be sad to be leaving the waterway here in a little bit. But I thought I would do one more audio post while I was here.
So remember a little while ago, earlier in the pod, when I said the bicycle touring gods will get you? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. Yeah, well, yeah.
Pedalshift Tour Journals, Volume 3, Erie Canal, near Albany, New York, 1.8 miles. 1.8 miles. And I'm on Central Avenue going towards it. Boy, Google Maps calls this a biking route. It's a 40-mile-per-hour road with a lot of gook on it. I taunted the bicycling gods, I believe yesterday, about no flats, and I got a nail in my rear tire that put that sucker down. Even got through the Schwalbe Marathon. It was a big-ass nail. So now I am 1.8 miles away from my destination and a flat tire. So I think I will change it because it's just far enough that locking it up and getting the car and coming back doesn't make a lot of sense. So moral of the story, pro tip, don't mock the bicycle touring gods. I'll take a picture. I'll put it in the social media goodness. You knew that something bad would happen, right? This was too easy of a tour. It was way too easy.
First of all, I would like to say a note for the record that those were Schwalbe Marathon Supremes that the nail got through. I've noted for the record on a few occasions that I've never gotten a flat that was a result of a puncture in Schwalbe Marathon Pluses, is what I have gone back to. Schwalbe Marathon Supremes I really like, but they aren't as kind of bulletproof. And this was one of the reasons, but that was a hell of a nail. Oh, and by the way, 2015 me, what, you think this is done? It's not done.
Epilogue. Well, the reward for my wonderful bike for transporting me all this way is to get jammed in the trunk of a late model Nissan. How sad is that? Obviously got the flat fixed and rode the very short distance to the car rental place and got everything all squared away. It was a great trip, and I'll have tons to say about it. The flat was just sort of, the one thing that could have happened at any point. It's just comically hysterical, to be redundant, that it happened less than 2 miles away from the end point. What you gonna do? Pedalshift Tour Journals, Erie Canal, Epilogue. I got a flat tire in my car coming back because, of course,
I've got an old mule and her name is Sal. 15 years on the Erie Canal. She's a good old worker and a good old pal. 15 years on the Erie Canal. We've hauled some barges in our day, filled with lumber, coal, and hay. And every inch of the way I know, from Albany to Buffalo. Low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, we must be getting near a town. You can always tell your neighbor, you can always tell your pal, if he's ever navigated on the Erie Canal.
And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedalshift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedalshift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like the Kessel Run. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Didis, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Stuart Buchan, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Dan Gebhardt, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Biggle, Greg Middlemas, Connie Moore, William Goffman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latois Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, Don Funk, Tom Bilch, Ronald Piroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messenger, David Grotke, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Letko, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCulloch, John Hickman, Jack Smith, Carl Presso, David Nees, and new to the society, Patty Louise and Terry Fitzgerald. And thanks to all past and anonymous members for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.